Investigation Bureau as we confront the realities of aviation safety in Ghana and Africa. A conversation sharpened by the tragic loss of 8 Ghanaians in a recent helicopter crash. So 2 men, 2 missions, one on the earth and the other in the skies above us. Tonight, we connect the dots between the security of our land and the safety of our skies, because in both battles, the price of failure is far too high. This is State of Affairs on GHOne Television, and the show is proudly brought to you in association with MTN everywhere you go. And like I always remind you, well, we are going seamless with MTN eSIM. All you need to do is to dial *#06# and check the eligibility of your mobile phone, and then you can sweep to MTN eSIM and get to enjoy the benefits of that. The good news is also that you will be contributing your part to dealing with climate issues. Well, we'll be right back after this break. Kwasi Schandorf is seated. We'll get into the conversation on illegal mining and government strategy right after this. On I can say a media tour. He's been answering so many questions in the last couple of days regarding government's fight against illegal mining. Kwasi Schandorf is the media relations officer at the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources. Pa, welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
I hope you're doing well.
Yeah, I'm fine.
You're fine.
Very fine. Very, very fine. Yeah, it's not easy, but yeah, I mean, I'm fine.
So basically, like I said earlier, you've had to do a lot of interviews speaking to Ghanaians about the commitment of this administration towards the Galamsey fight. How is that going?
Well, so far, so good. The reality, however, is that you can feel the anger of Ghanaians. You can feel that the entirety of the populace want Galamsey to quickly become a thing of the past. And that desire is justifiable, because if you look at the extent of devastation, no, for the want of a better word, reasonable Ghanaian would want it to continue. And so that justifies the the haste for immediate results, except that, like we have often reiterated, the fight against illegal mining is not a sprint, it's more of a marathon. And so, in as much as the expectations are valid, if I could advise or urge Ghanaians, I would have told them that, look, let's also exercise a bit of patience while we observe what the ministry is doing. So generally, it has been an interesting ride, sometimes a bit difficult, but we are working in the interest of Ghanaians. And so long as they keep edging us on, we'll keep moving.
So you say that you would have advised that Ghanaians should exercise some restraint and just keep an eye on what the ministry is doing. But the question is, what is the ministry doing?
So the ministry as of now has employed 5 basic strategies that it is deploying to deal with the menace of illegal mining, and I could run through them quickly so that maybe it provides a better context for the conversation. So the very first one has gotten to do with the reformation of the licensing regime. Indeed, one of the reasons why illegal mining festers in our parts of the world is the fact that most of the licenses that have been acquired and are running are defective. And so at the ministry, a committee was set up. A committee that the essence of the committee was to review existing licenses. It reviewed a total of 1,278 licenses. Now, out of that 1,278, 316 were cleared of any irregularity, so to speak. The remaining 962, however, were deemed to be defective. So back then, I think immediately after the review, 55 were outrightly revoked. Now we have an outstanding 907. Those ones would also be revoked very soon. But of course, the ministry is open for not negotiations or bargains, but we want to do maximum due diligence before we effect the revocation. So that is with the reformation of the licensing regime. Indeed, in that same layer of intervention, the ministry is also reviewing the mining regulations, the Minerals and Mining Act 2006, Act 703, I believe. So that one is also ongoing. And even with the review of the licenses, it will extend to the large-scale mining licenses as well. So that is the aspect of the reformation of the licensing regime.
Right.
Then we are embarking on land reclamation, which is a very practical step, because indeed, if you see the pictures, the gory scenes and all of that, naturally you will know that, look, these spectacles have to return to their pristine state. So the way out of it is the land reclamation. That is why we are ambitiously planting some 30 million plus trees. I'm going to touch on the other 3 quickly. We're also embarking on the stringent enforcement of the laws, and that is where the National Anti-Illegal Mining Operations Secretariat comes in, because there are already laws on the ground, except that, yes, there are people who are flagrantly ignoring them, so you have to enforce them to the latter. The body that has been mandated to execute that duty is the National Anti-Illegal Mining Operations Secretariat. This is just a wrap of the interventions. Then the last 2, we are deepening education and sensitization, because, Joshua, we may think in our part of the world where we sit that everybody naturally should understand that illegal mining is wrong and therefore they should desist from it. But there are people who find it a very delightsome venture. For them, that is the enterprise that they have embraced. You need to sensitize and talk them out of it. Indeed, tomorrow, for example, the ministry would be embarking on one of those community engagements as part of deepening the sensitization and all of that. And the final one is the provision of the alternative livelihoods, because for some, the justification has been that, look, we don't have any active means of economic enterprise. We don't work. We are jobless. Therefore, we are resorting to illegal mining as a means of livelihood. How do you reorient such people and redeem them, for the want of a better word, out of such a venture? Provide alternatives for them, and that's how come we launched the Responsible Cooperative Mining and Skills Development Program, which is being headed by Engineer Frank and Pedro Asari. Indeed, they are also embarking on a number of community engagements to sensitize the local folks on the need for them to, mine more sustainable and responsibly. So this is just a wrap of the 5 measures that the ministry has employed to deal decisively with illegal mining. Indeed, every other measure that you would hear or you would see ties into these 5. Generally, that's what we are doing at the moment.
So now it brings me to the question of one of the answers that the president provided at his encounter with the media, where he talked about the fact that even though we've been able to reclaim about 9 forest reserves, we still have an incident where some illegal miners are making their way into one of the forest reserves that has been reclaimed from their activities. Isn't that a testament to the fact that perhaps we need to do more with that, because like we all know, it's a multi-million or billion-dollar enterprise, and so people will not give up those livelihoods easy.
When it comes to human beings and the enforcement of laws, you always have to keep doing more. It's an endless journey. For example, every day, the court keeps jailing people for various offenses. Regardless, we still see people breaching the very laws, seeing the consequences and all of that. We see that armed robbers consistently are being jailed. Have people stopped robbing? They still go ahead. So the mere fact, and I'm using mere advisedly, the mere fact that you have repossessed 9 forest reserves that initially were branded red zones doesn't mean that the illegal miners would give up. They would keep coming. And so the more they come, the more you also return the fire and remain combative. And so that development, as much as we are not happy about it, should be understood naturally as the recalcitrance of human beings. They wouldn't give up, like you're saying, because yes, the enterprise is very profitable. They find it to be a very buoyant venture. Then you are coming to snatch it away from them. They will definitely come back. Thankfully, NIMOS has been redeployed. They're ensuring that it is actually 2 forest reserves. The first is the Jimira, and then I've forgotten the other one. I would have to check. Those are the 2
that have been
reserves that, and it's not the entirety of those forests anyway. It's just, if I say pocket, it will sound as if I'm trying to minimize the impact.
But we've seen the activities
really in there. We are realizing that they're making incursions into those places, but NIMOS is on the grounds, and NIMOS is working to flush them out as they have always done.
Talk to me about the work of NIMOS, because we understand that the Gold Board has even helped them today. 5 million Ghana cedis, 5 Toyota Hilux pickups to help the operations. What is NIMOS supposed to do with regards to the fight against illegal mining?
So NIMOS is coming against a certain background, which in recent history we should be able to appreciate. You remember that in the Esmal administration, there was Vanguard before we had Operation Halt, and then a couple of other task forces here and there. When we came into office and we studied their trajectory, we realized that most of the task forces that had been formed were largely uncoordinated. Their motive and their intents were good, but they lacked coordination. So this time around, the proposition on the table was that, look, centralize all the bodies into one umbrella, whether it's the police, the military, the national security. Every agency that wants to be part of the fight, let us unify and harmonize all of them. And that effectively underscored the coming into force of NIMOS. So the National Anti-Illegal Mining Operations Secretariat. It sits at the ministry, so the minister has it. But then there's representation from the Defense Ministry, the Interior Ministry, the Ministry of Local Government, the National Security, and all the other relevant state agencies. The essence of NIMOS is to ensure that when we are going as a unit. Because one of the disincentives is when maybe you see that a particular task force or troop are doing this, the next time another person is also embarking on another strategy, and everything begins to look disjointed. We have cleared that hurdle by bringing into force a very unified form. So that basically is what the whole essence of NIMOS is. And so far, the results have been very remarkable, especially because integrity in this fight is very important. I'm not sure you have heard of any reports that seeks to stain the integrity of NIMOS, that the personnel in NIMOS are engaged in. No. And that is very important. It's because of the discipline that has been instilled in that unit. And so with them, we should be hoping for very commendable results in the not too distant future as we progress.
But how different, significantly different is this fight as opposed to what we saw in the previous administration, where, yes, we also brought personnel together, we got them to the field, we found ways to stamp out illegal miners. I remember there were calls for shoot the people to kill them, deal with them ruthlessly, make it so unattractive for them. It looks like we are doing the same thing, but slightly different. So I'm asking, what results are we looking forward to, if what we saw in the previous administration is anything to go by?
If you want to circle out that element of distinction between what we are doing now and what we have seen in the past, I think there is only one metric that we should use: the extent of political interference. In the past, and I normally do not like doing the political comparison, but for the purposes of emphasis, it was in the past that we saw Professor Frimpong Boateng, for example, coming out to say that, look, there are even people in the government who were in the government of the day who were actually complicit and knee deep in the menace of illegal mining. And that is when we heard that popular refrain, Party Hiasika and all of that. So effectively, political will was obviously missing in the erstwhile administration. As of now, that political will is abundantly present, not only in the disposition of the sector minister, the Honorable Emmanuel Amakofibwa, but the president himself, the president of the Republic, also has the same disposition. One may want to ask, why am I saying it? Am I basically churning out maybe empty platitudes or just running, political rhetorics? No, it's none of that. Look at somewhere last 3 weeks, I think, or was it last month? We heard that 2 leading members of the National Democratic Congress.
Yes.
Joshua, these are not ordinary members like of the NDC. For example, we are looking at the party's national organizer and then the party's 3rd national chairman. These are very crucial characters within the configuration of the NDC. They became subjects of interest. As we speak, the president has not interfered. The minister himself has not gotten involved. And even though, yes, separately and categorically they have denied their involvement, they've still become, subjects of scrutiny. And the process is proceeding unabated. So if people, even in the ruling government, can be made to go under the lens of scrutiny, then you should know that, look, there is political will. And I've often said that is the most important thing that you need. Because the people who perpetuate illegal mining, most of them are the political high-ups or those who are influential. So if the leadership of the day is cracking the whip even on those who are politically connected, we should be happy.
But isn't it strange that we've not heard anything? I have not heard much from that scrutiny you talk about. Because, yes, the names were mentioned. Yes, we saw the referral and all of that, but we've not heard anything after that.
So the process of justice, as we always know, the will would always grind very
But we keep getting
slowly.
updates on other cases.
Exactly. But you see, the point again is that, you see, when it comes to matters of reputation, matters of integrity and all of that, you are careful not to jump the gun. You want to exhaust all the procedures. I can tell you that actively that the investigations around all of these allegations are ongoing and the results will be delivered. Indeed, if the results are not delivered, you are there to be asking the questions and sending the reminders. So just keep reminding us, but the results will definitely come.
You mentioned the Professor Frimpong Boateng report that mentioned that indeed there were elements in the NPP then who were actively involved in illegal mining activities as well.
Right.
But in that same report, it also mentions that there were elements in the NDC who were also involved in illegal mining.
Right. And that is basically, it doesn't detract from what I have said. If currently the government of the day is going after or is engaging or interrogating members or leaders of the party, then that's the point, that's the logic. If even leaders of the party can be interrogated, how much more any other party member, even if you operated foully in the erstwhile MPP administration or now, the government will come for you.
So you say, and you are assuring the people of Ghana tonight, that the president, the sector minister,
Absolutely.
the government is committed to this fight.
Absolutely. I've had cause to say that even if you were the best friend of the minister, and you see, and this is not because I work with the minister or I engage him often, but you see, you have to look at his disposition. He's neutral in all of this. He doesn't care whose ox is God. And for me, that is what I think is the reason the fight would be won. Because you need somebody at the helm who doesn't care. I don't want to sound vulgar, but he doesn't give a rat ass, so to speak. He doesn't care who involved. Okay, and that's a good thing, because the moment he begins to care, then compromises would come in. Then there will be a lot of unreasonable pardons before we realize the thing will blow in our faces. Honorable Amakofibwa, however, is not disposed that way. So there's reason to hope for better days ahead.
So let me talk about the issue of state of emergency. The president says, well, we have arsenals we are deploying, and when we get there, we will deploy. But for now, he doesn't believe that we are at that state yet. A couple of months ago, in 2024, we had the president. I never heard him say that categorically, but we've had leading members of the NDC also call for that. What has changed?
What has changed is the fact that the measures that we are rolling out now are giving us the results that ordinarily a state of emergency would also be delivering to us. But on this particular subject, I think the timelines are very important. And we would be honest. In 2017, nobody in this country heard about calls from the NDC for the declaration of a state of emergency. True. 2018, we didn't hear anything like that. 19, there was no call. Even 2020, when the mandate of the NPP was renewed, 2021, 2, 3, it was getting to the dying embers of 2024 that the call became viral. So I think the question we need to ask ourselves is that why did it begin? It began because when we as citizens, ordinary citizens even sat down and we began to look at the issues, it became apparent that from 2017 up to 2024, all the measures that the NPP government had put in place were not yielding the desired results. Therefore, we had gotten to the end of the cliff. So the call now was that go for the jugular, which is the declaration of a state of emergency. So the state of emergency, if you look at it carefully, is actually an option of last resort. And that was what the president indicated, John Dramani Mahama, that it's one of those things that you do when you are out of options. That is why after 8 years, when we saw that the results were not coming, we said, oh, then under the circumstances, a state of emergency should be declared. Now to the question, what has changed? When we took over, the policies we brought out, the policies that we implemented have been able to give us not perfect results, but very meaningful results. And therefore, it makes the declaration of a state of emergency moot because now the policies are working. And so because it's working, now you begin to ask yourself, okay, if you are getting the results anyway, why would you go ahead and declare the state of emergency? For example, 9 forest reserves, which had armed illegal miners with guns and ammunition who were going to fire back. 9 of those, within a period of 6 months, have all been repossessed. So why are you going to declare a state of emergency now? The problem, you see, the whole conversation about the state of emergency, I think it is merely political. Okay, it looks like NDC said we're going to do this. They've come, they are not doing it, and people. But if we were, as a people, ever careful to study the content and examine the nuances and the rubrics of a state of emergency, I don't think we would even be so interested in it because it is akin to, we can liken it to what we saw during the lockdown. When you go into any area and you declare a state of emergency, effectively you have curtailed their freedom, you have frozen their economic activity, you have put everything on freeze. And that also has implications. That is why the president was right in saying that, look, it is an option that can be exercised, but not now when the policies are working. So now anybody who is criticizing should be able to tell us that, look, your policies are not working, therefore declare. But are the policies not yielding the results? They are. The results, again, I'm saying, may not be perfect or they may not be impressive. But then again, you do not expect a devastation that has deepened over 8 years to naturally start changing in 9 months. So we have to, exercise a bit of patience in all of it.
Because the same people who were calling for the state of emergency last year are the same ones calling for state of emergency now.
Is it true?
Oh, UTAG called for it last year.
Yeah.
I spoke to the UTAG president a couple of days ago. He says, yes, what they want is the state of emergency declared. Ken Ashigbe, leading the charge, also has said that, Mr. President, let's look at a targeted state of emergency in these areas so that we can deal decisively with this menace of Galamsey. We don't want to sit down and watch for things to get to the state they were before you took over, before we say we're declaring a state of emergency. Timing is of the essence, and that's the word that the UTAG president used, that timing is of the essence.
Indeed,
we cannot wait.
Timing is of the essence, but sometimes, again, I'm saying that we ought to, at this particular moment, for the fact that the policies are working, we have to be careful because, and this is not to be, to sound snobbish or dismissive or maybe condescending, but for many of those who make those calls, I have ever wanted to ask them respectfully, what do they understand? Again, not to be derogatory or disrespectful, what do they factually understand by a state of emergency? What do they understand? Indeed, Joshua, we can all agree, if you observe even the sentiments on social media, wouldn't you agree that it looks like people perceive the declaration of a state of emergency as a certain magic wand or a miracle bell that the moment is pressed, all of a sudden Galamsey would end? That impression is, with the greatest of respect to the sensitivities of Ghanaians, is very, very erroneous. It's not the case that if tomorrow it is, because if it is declared, you see, what you do by a declaration effectively is that you essentially suspend the constitutional frame of governance. So now it is, I don't want to say brute force, but you are militarizing the whole fight. Okay, military men, human beings, they are the ones who are basically going to take over. Was it not last 4 weeks that NIMOS arrested some 4 military men? These were supposed to be military men, but do you know, these military men were actually complicit, guarding Galamsey sites and all of that. These were military men. Okay, so we shouldn't think that once we go into the sway of full military deployment by way of a state of emergency, suddenly our fortunes will change. No. We should be careful, because if we do that and finally the president wakes up one day and says that I have declared a state of emergency, I can assure you, the same Ghanaians, even including myself and all genuine critics, will say, okay, you declared, now where are we going? That's what the president president was right in saying, look at the measures that are currently on board. Let us interrogate them. Of course, if some of them are defective upon evaluation, we can always tighten the loopholes. But let's work with what we have now. Because if you declare a state of emergency, I don't know your hometown, but let's say you are somewhere, maybe in any of the Galamsey areas, so to speak.
Well, there's no Galamsey in my hometown.
Okay, that's fine. We thank God. But if it were to be declared in any of the endemic regions, this is what is going to happen. Again, I'm saying their freedom of movement will be curtailed, economic activities will be halted.
But they are calling for targeted, not for the entire region, but in the districts that are affected by these illegal mining.
It would not absolve them of the effects. Yeah, it would not. Because let us take a community like maybe... the communities are not coming to mind. But let's take a community like Community A, for example. You're going to declare Community A.
Right.
Okay. It may even lead to a curfew situation because, yes, you're going to limit their movement. You're going to limit their movement, their economic activity. And you see, it cannot even last forever. Of course, there is a stipulated duration that it must, run for.
Right.
Okay. Parliament will have to ratify that consistently and all of that. It is also another burden on its own. And it would not also do any better than the policies that currently are being rolled out. So why don't we stick to the policy? The policies that are being rolled out, the ones that I have explained, and there are many other that the ministry keeps on, unraveling. So I think it's the political. I see that's a very political issue. Yes, the NDC was, as it were, very loud on it. But even that one, the argument can be made that, and I'm saying this on the side, that the NDC didn't officially come out to say that we want a state of emergency declared. But regardless, there were principal voices in the party who were calling for it. So
and they supported
absolutely.
Loudly.
So we may interpret that as the general stance of the NDC. But yes, there is a distinction between the individual sentiments and the collective stance of the party. But let's just assume, without admitting that, okay, well, it is the whole party. But even at that, I'm saying, if we go ahead and declare now, it will not do any better than the policies we have on the ground at all.
Because, for those who are calling for it, they make the argument that, listen, we are calling for the state of emergency because, or we did call for that in 2024 because our water bodies were not looking clean. We could not use that. And now it's not changed. As it stands now, Ghana Water Limited says that they want to charge tariffs in excess of 200% because, among others, they don't have raw water, proper raw water to give to us. Their cost of production has gone so high that they cannot live. So if the situation is persistent, aren't those costs justified? So
again, it comes back to the question. And again, I don't want to sound very savage or dismissive. So if it is true that the stability levels have increased and you declare a state of emergency today, I think you know where I'm coming to. So the levels, that's not the point. That's what I'm saying. We should be careful not to portray it as a magic wand or a miracle button that the moment is pressed. That's not the case. Okay, because if you declare it, okay, you are only now perhaps going to enhance the military deployment. That is the same thing that the 9 months is already doing as we speak. And that is why the chief executive officer of the Gold Board, Mr. Sami Jemfi today, did that particular gesture. If you're able to strengthen 9 months, you get the same results that you would get within the context of a state of emergency. So why do you go there, especially when you have not even exhausted all your interventions, like the ones that were exhausted from 2017 to 2024, where we now felt that, look, all the measures had been exhausted, therefore we were out of options, so go for the jugular, declare state of emergency. Now, the measures are actually working, so maybe we should give some time. Right? Like they say.
Give time some time.
Yes, some time.
Because you said the measures are working.
Yeah, they're working.
And then people are asking, okay, where's the evidence on the
results
ground?
The results are not perfect.
Where's the evidence on the ground to substantiate that indeed the measures being taken by the administration are actually producing results?
So first of all, there are two things that we are doing so far that is really helping. First of all is the non-politicization of the fight, in the sense that anybody who is a political actor, once your name is mentioned, you'll be interrogated. When you have such a disposition as a government, you have already won the fight, because then you have dealt with the power brokers who actually mandate the errand boys that we see. That is a big deal. Once you have that, you have won the fight, basically. Now come to the practical combative steps on the grounds. You have NIMOS, the 9 forest reserves that became the hotspots have all now been repossessed. Never mind the fact that, yes, there are some incursions now, which of course is being taken care of. After that, what next? You come to the water bodies. There is a whole program and plan to dechemicalize the water and reduce the turbidity levels and all of that. But that, again, frankly speaking, and in all truthfulness, would not materialize now. So I think what we must do is, let's take the policies, all the policies that the ministry have announced. Let's interrogate each one of them and be careful not to, again, present the state of emergency as that miracle that is going to transform our fortunes, because it may not necessarily. In fact, it will not even do that. And I've had cause to say, even on this same platform in an earlier engagement, that if all the policies, start yielding result fully in a perfect manner, even the state of emergency may declare itself. We wouldn't have to declare it. Naturally, we would all come to a point where we know that, no, right now we are even getting the perfect results. The results now are not perfect, but never mind. The fight is a marathon and not a sprint. So that's expected.
Right, so my guest tonight having a conversation on the illegal mining fight and government's process in terms of how government is looking at dealing with the menace. Kwasi Schandorf, his media relations officer at the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources. But earlier we put up a poll on social media to also find out from you what you make of the fight against illegal mining. And we asked the simple question that, do you believe 8 months is enough for President Mahama's administration to end Galamsey? Now, the interesting bit is that quite a substantive amount of respondents said, well, realistically, government needs more time. That's over 779 respondents saying that realistically, John Mahama and his administration needs more time. 246 of you believe that. Sam George said it can take a week. So why are we not seeing it done in a week? 8 months is a long time. Then again, the president says he's going to use AI. So why are we not seeing all of that manifest on the grounds? 75 of you say not sure, but if the dollar rates could be fixed as fast, Galamsey can too. Kwasi, what do you make of these responses?
Of course, I agree with the middle class of voters that realistically it needs more time. That's the thing. I mean, because you see, you have to look at, again, let's do the ratio and then the proportion. Okay, you have 8 full years. We didn't get any maybe meaningful or proper results. Okay, or the devastation deepened. And I have to put this on record. Many people think that our argument is that the Galamsey began in Akufo-Addo's time. No, Galamsey has been with us for a long time. But in recent history, it is in the last 8 years that it deepened. But now that it has deepened, of course, you have to undo it. But you cannot undo it under 8 months, especially when government is also attending to other issues. I mean, look at the third votes, and it had to do with the recovery of the city. So government is doing a lot of other things, and therefore we have to give some more time. I'm sure the obvious question that will come is that if you want some more time, how much more time should you be given? As of now, it will be frankly very difficult to assign any definitive timelines. But since the policies are working, we should be hopeful. I vote 7.
So the conversation was politicized over the years, and I'm sure that's why 246 respondents say that, yes, Sam George says it can be fought within a week. And so why are we not seeing that done? Would you say that the current pressure on the administration with regards to the Galamsey fight is also because of some of these comments?
I think it is basically coming not from the comments necessarily, but I would rather say from the depths of the devastation that we have seen. I'm saying that tomorrow, God willing, I would not be in Accra around this time. Of course, we will go to the grounds and then do some examinations and all of that. If ever, I'm sure, I don't know if you've been to any of the sites before, if you went at any given point, you would even be praying that we are able to undo the damage in a day. It's normal for Ghanaians to feel that when we do not begrudge them. But then when we move away from that realm of regret and pain, on paper, realistically, we know that it cannot happen instantaneously. And that is where we have to be practically very patient and then allow the...
Because that's exactly what your political opponents say. I mean, I've had cause to speak to some of them, and they say, well, when the NDC was in opposition, they made so much noise. Now they've been faced with reality, and now they are eating back their words because they've now realized that the Galamsey fight, like you said, is not a one-day thing.
Yeah, it's not a one-day thing, but it shouldn't also take 8 years to fix. we were making noise again in the dying embers of the year 2024. That's why I said, and you can confirm that 2017, 18, 19, nobody was talking about the declaration of a state of emergency. Yes, there were criticisms that were coming from the party, but it wasn't to the point of the declaration of a state of emergency. No, nobody did that. But after 8 years, I mean, you don't need 8 years to now deal with the issue. And I can assure you, we would not, I don't think we'll get to a point where after 8 years, we are still in the situation that we are in now. No, not with the measures that we are rolling out. And more importantly, the political will that we have as of now.
So what is the assurance to the Ghanaian people now?
That I should be careful on not to promise, but we can assure. We will not promise, but we will definitely assure that, again, there is one most important critical ingredient that you need to deal with the menace of illegal mining. Because of how there are doyens and politically exposed persons who are involved. Therefore, if you are going to crack the whip, you need someone who, having the whip, is politically not neutral, but very objective, fair, and extremely dedicated. In that sense, we have all of that manifest in the sector minister, the Honorable Emmanuel Amakufibwa. The president himself has shown that willingness. There is that momentum oozing from him that he is well disposed to deal with the elephant in the room. And so because we have political will abundantly present, coupled with the policies that we have on board, in the not too distant future, our waters to become blue and our forests to become green once again.
The Blue Water Guards. Significant.
Is that coming because I said blue?
No. I just remembered. I just remembered that. No. I mean, significantly, what difference have they made?
Well, this particular question, it has come up a lot of times. There are people who think that, look, the Blue Water Guards, they don't represent anything. It's only an avenue to create a job for the boys, but all of that is not true. So what they do, and maybe I could take you through how they are recruited. So they are not recruited outside of their communities. These are communal folks who live in the vicinities where the illegal mining takes place. So they live in the very communities. And what they do is to provide basically ground intelligence for NIMOS to follow up on. That is all they do, essentially. So they provide the intelligence, but once a while, they join with the combative efforts so far. I mean, the combative efforts. And so far, I have here with me, I mean, the last week, the incursions and the results that they've been able to chalk. And if you study the report, you realize that away from the ridicule, they are actually doing so much, fantastically well. But yes, of course, because of the heat in the room, I think Ghanaians are not really in the mood to pay attention to what the Blue Water Guards are doing. But honestly, they are doing excellently.
Because my worry there is that if they are recruited from the communities, isn't that an easy avenue for them to be corrupted by the people engaged in the illegal mining itself, and how that can have an impact on the fight, the combative aspect of NIMOS's work?
Rather, it is the opposite. Normally, if you look at armed robbers or thieves, normally they don't even steal in their own communities where they live. They rather want to go outside. It's the same thing. Because they are coming from the communities where the illegal mining takes place, of course, their faces are known. Therefore, they cannot perpetrate any illegality, home. They rather want to go and play away, if we have to, put it that way. That's number one. Then again, the reason it's very difficult for them to be compromised is because, you see, if you look at the marching orders that are given them, you see, Blue Water Guards don't only work because, yes, the ministry has contracted them whatsoever and all of that. It's more of a communal affair. Everybody in it's like a community watchdog society, so to speak. We are all coming to say that, look, we are harassed by armed robbers, so we are going to guard ourselves. That's what they do. So because everybody owes an allegiance to somebody, within the same space, there's that feeling of belongingness and, loyalty. So really, I mean, in fact, we have not heard of any story of compromise, and indeed none would show up because of, again, the leadership that they have.
But is there a mechanism to deal with such when they rear their heads, or if they rear their heads?
Well, when we get there, I'm sure there should be, but I don't think from where I sit, looking at their structure and their disposition, I don't think we will record anything of that nature. But, of course, if peradventure there is such an unfortunate slip, the minister, like I have said, does not tolerate any form of deviation where this fight is concerned. I'm sure whoever the whip has to be cracked on, that will be done accordingly.
All right. So finally, the cooperative mining scheme that was launched, that was when the unfortunate incident happened. Where are we with that?
So I remember the event of 6th August 2025. yeah, I was in the thick of affairs. I was the MC for that particular event. So, of course, I don't like remembering it because I feel the moment and the mood in some way. But as much as it's a very painful reminder, the other good news is that it has urged us on not to rest on our laurels. Indeed, prior to that incident, we were already doing good, but that only gingered us to keep on doing the very thing that we've been doing all the while.
Right.
And so we were able to give birth to our concept on that particular grounds. The coordinator of the program, Engineer Frank Pedro Asari, over the last 2 weeks has been going across the country with the rest of his team to do the sensitization, because they need to understand why they have to depart from illegal mining, which of course really is fetching them more to something more sustainable. You need to reconfigure their thinking first before you bring the program properly. And so far so good, because I mean, if you look at the feedback, even from the engagement with the chiefs, you realize that this is something they are all embracing. So first phase, we are doing the community sensitization. When we are done with that, we'll roll out the cooperatives accordingly. Indeed, there are some, the last time I checked, but I may have to update this record. I think there are some 15 communities that have been identified, okay, where those there say that, look, let's mine more responsibly, let's form the cooperatives, okay? So that's a departure, because ordinarily, previously, they would do it recklessly anyway, but now they're going to form the cooperatives, which means that they're going to be regulated. There's going to be a program for land reclamation in all of that, and that's a good news, very good news.
Obviously, thank you so much for coming.
It's a pleasure.
And I'm sure that in the coming days we'll get to talk more about the ministry's work with regards to illegal mining. So Kwasi Schandorf is the media relations officer at the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources, helping us appreciate government's fight against illegal mining, where we are and what the future looks like. But one thing is obvious: government says give time some time. Let us deploy all the arsenals that we have currently. Let us make sure that it deals with illegal mining. If in the in the event that it does not yield the necessary results, then we can look at the state of emergency. Well, don't go anywhere, because right after this we'll be getting into the conversation regarding aviation security. How safe are our skies? I'm sure some of you have a lot of apprehension. Well, we'll get into that conversation shortly right after this. This is State of Affairs here on GHOne Television with me, Joshua Kodjo Mensah. Be right back.